Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Renu Tyagi from Department of Anthropology, University of Delhi. Today I am going to speak on the module Impact of the Population Growth on Environment and Society from the paper Demographic Anthropology. The learning objectives of this module are: number 1, to get an insight into the stages of the cultural development and population growth around the world. Number 2, to understand the determinants of the population structure and their effect on environment and society. Number 3 is to come up with the possible solution for reduction in the population growth and subsequent environmental degradation. First of all, let's briefly discuss on the impact of the population growth on environment and society. There are various stages of the cultural development and population growth. Around 6 million years ago, primitive human predecessor or hominids emerged in the fossil record. The earliest remnants of a small bipedal hominin have been found in the Chad. However, the first identifiable human fossil was of the Homo habilis, which evolved about 2.5 million years ago, around the time when the Pleistocene ice age were just beginning in the mid-latitude. The oldest remains of this human fossil have been found in East Africa and in cave deposits of the southern part of the Africa. Ever since then, the human population spread over the entire land surface of the earth. Archaea Homo sapiens may have reached Asia by around 2 million years ago and Europe at about the same time. The stone tool culture of the Italy and Spain in southern Europe has shown association with the Homo. In northwest Europe and Britain, the earliest dates for the human occupation, Homo sapiens appeared in Africa around 1,60,000 years ago. And then they spread out of the Africa to different parts of the world. The population density was low and an optimum territory area for a band of the hunter and gatherers would range from 300 to 500 per square kilometer in the Middle Eastern woodlands, while in the drier region it might have been 500 to 2000 km square. By that time, the world population may have been estimated to be around 5 million people. The agricultural revolution probably facilitated the human population expansion to be about 500 million by 1650 AD. The human population reached about 1000 million by 1850 AD, 2000 million by 1930 AD and 4000 million by 1974 AD. After the advent of the medical and the industrial revolution and subsequent development in the agricultural practices and colonization of the newer areas, the human population has reached over 6,000 million by the year 2000 and in 2012 it crossed the 7,000 million mark. Improvement in the field of the medicine and introduction of the vaccines for controlling the malaria, cholera and eradication of the smallpox has been responsible for the striking decrease in the death rate throughout the world. The worldwide annual growth in the population has been around 75 to 77 million people over the last decade. The part of the human impact, however, has not been as easy process of rising change in the reaction to linear population growth, which has been noticed over time. Cultural change was substituted for biological evolution for the very first time as a way of adapting an organism to its new habitat in a wide range, which ultimately resulted in the inclusion of the whole earth. The growing impact of the humans on the environment has been frequently expressed in terms of the equation, that is I is equal to PAT, where I is the impact human apply on the environment, P is the number of the people, A is the affluence or the demand on the resources per person and T is the technological factor, that is the power that humans can exert through technological changes. The variable P, A and T in the expression have been seen by many as the three horsemen of the environmental apocalypse. This equation may hold true in various situations, but Mayer pointed out that the formula could not be applied in the mechanistic way. On one hand, many poor countries have severe environmental issues, and these countries do not have the required resources to deal with these problems, whereas the affluent countries do. On the other hand, affluent countries have taken resources from the poverty-struck countries and using them injudiciously, and thus leading to the depletion of these resources on a faster pace. Technology can be either a factor leading to the improvement or damage. For example, the use of the technology such as the chlorofluorocarbons has led to the ozone depletion and causing the damage to the environment, while using the technology to set up a renewable energy source for production of the electricity instead of the burning fuel at power station for the same purpose proved to be beneficial for the environment. In addition to the population affluence and technology, environmental changes are also dependent on the organization of the different societies, their social and economic structure. Therefore, the control of the environmental changes due to human impact are complex and in many cases controversial. But all of these factors play some sort of the role at some place or time to some extent. Before the improvement in nutrition, medical and technology, the human population was growing very slowly and was in constant check by the limiting factor such as the disease, climate fluctuation, etc. The population growth data indicates that it took 1804 years for humans to reach a population of 1 billion. However, with the improvisation in the field of the nutrition, medicine and technology, the population increase became rapid. This figure depicts the human population which witnessed an exponential growth over the past few hundred years. The impact of the human population growth on environment has been taken two major forms. Number one, the consumption of the resources such as the land, food, water, air, fossil fuel and the minerals. And number two is the generation of the waste product as a result of the consumption of the resources such as the air and the water pollutants, toxic material and greenhouse gases. It is a matter of concern and worry that unchecked population growth may result in an environmental catastrophe. Circumstantial evidences undoubtedly indicated that as human population is increasing, the environment is degrading. Due to the huge impact of the human population on the planet, the scientists have coined a new term to define this time period. They have referring to this as the Anthropocene epoch. The previously named geological epochs were defined on the basis of the geological and climatic processes which influenced that time period. Likewise, as proposed, the Anthropocene epoch is influenced by the humans and their activities, which have been molding the environment according to their convenience. Therefore, humans have been now regarded as the novel global geophysical force. Population growth is determined by various factors which interplay with each other. These factors includes the population distribution, which included the density, migration patterns and urbanization. Population composition, which is attributed by age, sex and the income level. It is also affected by the population consumption patterns, which is the most important factor and consists of the consumption of the resources by the population. Now let's discuss about the population size. As the world population continues to grow on a rapid pace, the essential resources such as the drinking water, fertile land, forest, fisheries, etc. are becoming limited. Therefore, more people will use more resources, which will lead to crunch in the availability of the resources and more waste generation. The discussion is incomplete without the concept of carrying capacity, which is defined as the maximum number of the people who can be sustained by the environment for indefinite time. The actual human carrying capacity of the earth is still debatable. The estimated range have reached high figure and have shifted from 500 million people to more than 1 trillion. The scientists do not agree on the figure of carrying capacity of the earth and also do not approve of the methods used for determining these numbers. They have found huge variability during the estimation of the carrying capacity, hence the best and the most accurate way of calculation has yet not been given. The consumption of the resources by the people around the world is also not even and very distinctive. For instance, an average middle class American may consume about 3.3 times the amount of food actually required for survival and almost 250 times the quantity of the water necessary for living. So, if all the people on the earth start to consume resources at the rate as an average middle class American, there will be enough resources only for the population of 2 billion people. However, if the resource consumption is judicious and people only consume the amount which is required by them, the carrying capacity of the earth will be much higher. Now let's see the population distribution. The pattern of the distribution of the population across the earth also has an impact on the environment. Due to poverty, unawareness and inaccessibility regarding the methods of family planning, the birth rate are higher in the developing countries, whereas developed countries have a lesser burden of the birth rate as the facilities and income lead to lower birth rate. This figure has indicated that 80% of the world population has been living in underdeveloped and developing nations, and this has been adding a pressure on the local environment. Every country is nowadays witnessing an increasing trend of the urbanization where majority of its inhabitants are becoming urbanized. Many researchers argue that urbanization has led to the efficient use of the resources. There have been environmental issues related to such mass movement of the people from underdeveloped to the urbanized centers in search for the better education and the jobs. This mass migration has led to the establishment of the slums in the cities, which has led to the indoor pollution. Because these type of settlements do not follow any environmental regulations, are clustered and crowded, have poor sanitation and are prone to the growth of infectious and other chronic diseases. The developed nations have also been a witness to higher influx of the people in the cities than before. Due to the rise in the population, there is a pressure on the cities and the resources available there. Resources such as the water, food, air, energy are now getting depleted by the pollution caused by the growing number of cars, use of heaters, air conditioners, setting off the factories which dispose their waste and smoke into the water bodies and air. This is causing an array of the environmental issues at the local level. Human beings have a nomadic lifestyle. They have always explored the earth by moving across. Although these migrations are aggravated by the conflicts such as the wars or environmental crises at their place. The movement of the people from one place to the another often leads to the short or the long-term amendments in the environment. For example, due to the war crisis in the Middle East countries such as Syria and Iraq, the people are migrating from these war places into refugee camp and other countries. This kind of population migration or transfer is being termed as unplanned migration, which has resulted in several million people fleeing these countries and becoming refugees. Now let's understand the population composition. The composition of a population may also influence the surrounding environment. Currently, the world population has both the major proportion of youth, that is aged less than 24 years, and the highest percentage of the elderly people. Younger people may migrate to the other places for better facilities and opportunities. This may intensify the environmental concern in the urban areas. Population income is also a significant aspect. The uneven division of the earning result in a stress on the environment from the population under lower and the higher income level. In order to survive, poor people contribute adversely in unsustainable level of the resources used, such as burning the tire or plastics for fuel, which cause the pollution. The need to feed themselves and their families, they may end up using the scarce natural resources like the forest produce and the animals. On the other hand, the higher income individual consumes large level of the resources injudiciously by the lifestyle and the luxury they opt for. On a nationwide level, economic growth and environmental damage are also interrelated. The least developed nations have lower level of industrial activity, which results in the lesser environmental damage. The developed countries have initiated the ways for improvising on the technology and energy efficiency for the reduction of their environmental impact while retaining the higher level of the production. The location of the most environmental damage are the developing countries because they experience extreme resource consumptions and are burdened by the demand of the developed countries for production. To fulfill the demands of the production, these countries experience migration of the human for work, which leads to the higher resource consumption, and as a result the waste production also increases. Now let's have a look at the population consumption. People residing in developed countries generally have a bigger ecological footprint than the one staying in developing countries. The ecological footprint is a standardized measure to estimate how much productive land and water is required to produce the resources that are consumed and to absorb the waste produced by a person or group of people. Although poverty and environment depletions are closely related, it is the indefensible pattern of consumptions and waste production, especially in the developed nation, which are of greater worry. Human population living in the poor countries are already stressed by food insecurity, poor sanitation, housing and water supplies, and the incapability of meeting the basic necessities of the current population. A fairly large fraction of these populations are surviving on subsistence agriculture. As the population experiences growth, the competition for the productive land and the exploitation of the limited resources will increase. Now let's have a look at the food production. Meeting the escalating food demand is certainly the most fundamental challenge and the most prominent population and environmental catastrophe. With the development of the efficient farming techniques and introduction of the fertilizers, pesticides, the crop yield per unit area has improved and the quantity of the land under cultivation has also expanded. The global food production is at par with the population growth. Yet, millions of people still do not have enough quantity of the food to eat. Food insecurity is a time and again a consequence of the unavailability of the food, inadequate purchasing power, inappropriate division, or insufficient usage of the food at household level. Poverty, natural disaster, political violence, and other geographical factors create an inconsistent distribution of the food across the world. Improper use of the machines, chemicals, and extensive irrigation is resulting in depletion of the quality as well as the quantity of the land and water resources. The land is becoming prone to the wind and the water erosion. Improper irrigation practices leads to the increase of salinity in the soil and to a larger requirement of the impermeable groundwater. Chemical turn-off, which are the constituents of the fertilizers and pesticides, also degrade water resources. Let's understand the water resource management. Population growth and distribution have been correlated to accessibility of the fresh water and sustainability of the renewable sources of water. The demand for the water has increased essentially over the past 5 decades because of the population growth and also since there has been a growth in the usage of water for household, cultivation and industrial purposes. Suitable management of the water resources is very important for keeping up with the need of an ever-increasing population and for escalating water use. Simultaneously, we must also take measure to prevent the degradation of the water and try to clean up the polluted water sources. A significant number of the global population do not have access to a proper supply of the safe and clean water for household purpose. In some underdeveloped countries, only half of the population have access to the safe drinking water, while the other half is still deprived of the basic necessity. Shortage of water and polluted water resources often lead to the food insecurity. Consumption of the polluted water also cause major health problems. Organizations and institutions which undertake the responsibility of water management must integrate proficient techniques for utilization of the water for industrial and agricultural usage. These management policies must consider the security of the local community in association with the national governance in order to safeguard the water right and guarantee the success of program. Now let's have a look at the energy resources. Human activities such as the burning of the fossil fuel, cutting of the forest and clearing of the forest, cover for the expansion and establishment of the urban center have led to a considerable increase in the emission of the carbon dioxide, that is CO2. Carbon dioxide emission is a major contributor to the climate change, which is most likely to cause rise in the temperature, lead to more intense weather patterns and the spread of the infectious disease and exert more pressure on the environment. The United States is the prime contributor of the overall carbon dioxide emission and it also among the countries with the highest per capita rate. According to the World Resources Institute, the US per capita carbon dioxide emission rate have increased from 19.2 metric tons per person to 19.9 metric tons per person between the year 1990 to 2002. Per capita usage has also experienced a rise in the China from being 2.2 to 2.9 metric tons between 1990 and 2002. China surpassed the United States to total carbon dioxide emission in 2010 and currently it is the prime contributor of the overall carbon dioxide emission in the world. Burning of the fossil fuel contribute to the enormous majority of energy production. The growing usage of the fossil fuel is having an ill effect on the environment and degradation of the air and water. Air pollution from greater usage of coal and vehicular exhaust has caused acid rain, which is responsible for damaging the forest, lakes and streams. Increased fossil fuel utilization is leading to a significantly higher buildup of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, more greenhouse gas emissions, which are consequently resulting in the global warming. Now let's understand what are the possible solutions for reducing the population growth and environmental degradation. There have been theories which believe that if humans will not find ways to limit the population and burden on the earth, the planet itself will find ways of doing that. Population growth is a serious issue which cannot be ignored, but it is ironical that the United Nations, which is an eminent global organization, has conducted only 3 world conferences under the domain of population and development. However, the government agencies across the globe have started to recognize the seriousness and significance of the situation and are taking measures to reduce the environmental impact of growing population and consumption. Let's see how we can control the population growth. The rate of the population growth should be reduced through implementation of the effective family planning measures. The economic development can be another tool. The objective of the population control is not merely bringing decline in the rate of the fertility, but it is also responsible for improving the quality of the life of people. This is achieved through a rapid economic expansion. The developing countries which are currently in the phase of demographic transition can attain economic growth and advancement in the quality of life by commercialization of the agricultural practices, industrialization, urbanization and growing advances in infrastructure, which is increasingly the chance of employment and resulting in rise in income level. By improving the health and the nutrition is another way. Improvement of the health and proper nutrition level are very significant factors which contribute to the social development of developing countries. To achieve this, the people under weaker section of the society who do not utilize the inadequate benefit of the health, family welfare and nutrition services must be made aware of such facilities to improve their status of health and nutrition. Public participation is another good way. Public awareness and participation are highly successful for improving the environmental conditions. Education and environmental awareness programs educating the masses have a very efficient, successful rate in controlling the environmental degradation. Now let's summarize the module. It is evident that man's unique power to maneuver the things and build up on experience has enabled him to overcome the barrier of temperature, aridity, space, seas and mountains that have always proven to be a limiting factor in case of other species to particular habitat within a restricted range. Human beings were able to perform the functions which the other organisms could not do with the help of the devices like fire, clothing, shelter, tools, etc. And all these devices facilitate them to change the original formation of any material into a significant object for their benefit. This was the prime reason why human beings were able to spread to the entire globe with the time and have been able to sustain for more than 1,50,000 years now and are increasing in number with the each passing day. However, population growth has led to its own impact on the environment, which led to the deleterious impact on the quality as well as the quantity of the resources available on the earth. Overpopulation was featured with uneven distribution of the resources, overconsumption and other population dynamics. Researchers have highlighted the ways in which the population variable such as age, sex, composition, household composition, fertility, mortality, morbidity, etc. have had useful as well as harmful effect on the environment. The local institution, non-government organization, international bodies of the environmental policy makers have been taking steps to monitor the distribution of the resources to the population all over the globe. However, small yet significant measures are to be taken by the people so that there is enough to meet the need of the present generation while keeping in mind the requirement of the future generation as well. Thank you.